When I found out Capcom was making a new Resident Evil, I in no way, shape, or form was expecting what we received. I wouldn't imagine they would have stripped down to basics with a new point of view in that matter, but December 9th of 2016 came, and I was both hyped and confused with the outcome of the beginning hour demo. Completing that demo gave me no Resident Evil vibes whatsoever, and I didn't know whether that was a good thing or bad thing. I soon found out on the release of Resident Evil 7 that it would be my favorite in the franchise, and that's a hard sell for most, but I have my reasons. I'm going to break the game down in 3 different categories in this retrospective, and that's inspiration, story, and gameplay, to give my reasoning why it's one, if not the strongest entry in the franchise. Let's start with inspiration. What inspired the complete 180 turn into this direction? What gave Capcom the decision to say, hey, let's take a step back from the huge biological war going on, let's take a step back from our beloved characters we cherish and go back to basics? I can tell you the answer in just 2 letters, PT. PT released in August of 2014, and it was like a cultural phenomenon at the time. Everybody was talking about PT. It scared the living hell out of all who played the demo. Nobody even knew it was secretly a Silent Hill project in the works. It was titled PT for Playable Teaser, and it just threw you the reins to figure out the rest. It was just a first-person point of view in a repeating hallway of a house. The puzzles in this demo were so freaking hard. I remember being so lost and had to find help online to complete it. I don't know how anyone in this planet could have figured it out to complete PT, but for those people, congrats to you for being the smartest people in the world. They had to have had hints from the devs, but let's get back on track. That repeating hallway was excellently crafted to build suspense and leave us in dread. It did that perfectly. It was so well done when the project was cancelled, all the fans of the demo were devastated. We never experienced anything like that. What were we going to do? Well, that's when Capcom decided to let Konami hold their beer and get started on that very game that would change Resident Evil as we knew it. They decided to strip the game back all the way to the point where the game hardly felt like Resident Evil at all, or not to the sequels anyways. If you look at it in the perspective of the first Resident Evil, it felt very similar. It was tight-cornered, claustrophobic, and there was so much mystery and confusion. It was like a reboot, but not a reboot, all at the same time.
Hey baby! I just wanted to send a quick hello, and I love you.
You were right. I did lie to you. I shouldn't have. All I can say is that if you get this, stay away.
The story being dialed back was exactly what they needed to do. It was becoming a little bit complicated, especially to the general fans. In this game, your name is Ethan Winters, and you receive an email from your wife that's been missing for 3 years. Something's not right and you know it. No matter how clear Mia made it to stay away, Ethan can't. Who would? I'm almost positive if anyone received a message from a loved one after being missing, you'd go after them too. He travels to Dulvey, Louisiana to get to the bottom of it. He soon found out things were more complicated than it originally turned out. He finds this property that looks very much abandoned and finds his wife's wallet. The leads were showing she was there. He was on the right track. He explores for more clues and eventually finds her, and she's different. She seems perfectly fine when she's found up until the point she hears footsteps and she says Daddy's coming. Nothing is making sense up to this point, and as he keeps trying to get her to safety, she turns. Into what exactly? Ethan has no clue. But I'm assuming the first thought he has is she's possessed or something. She goes ballistic and tries to murder him. He had no choice. He fought back and seemingly killed her. Ethan suffered 2 different fights of pure hell until Daddy does show up and welcomes Ethan to the family himself. You thought it was already downhill? No. It gets even worse than that. You're face to face with a whole family of nutjobs that for some reason will not die.
Why won't you die?
You have Jack Baker, the father and provider of the family. He's the powerhouse of the group and will follow you through hell and back to give you a taste of his special feast. You have Marguerite Baker, the mother and supporter of the group. You think she's scary in the beginning, but you wait until you see her later. She terrifyingly bugs the shit out of you, if you catch my drift. And then we have Lucas Baker, the sociopathic bastard who took some notes from the Jigsaw Killer in the Saw films and put it into good use. Not a major spoiler, but you find out he's insane even before he changes with the rest of them, which makes him even scarier. We also have the grandma. She's there 1 second and gone in the next. You better keep a close eye on her though. Something just isn't right with this granny. You also have Zoe, who is your partner in this mess. With Mia losing her shit and the rest of the family trying to murder you, Zoe's the only one normal. She's odd but trustworthy. She wants Ethan to make it out alive to not only help her, but to help her family and put them to justice. The cast of characters in this game were iconic to say the least. They were all different in their own way and each scared the living hell out of me. You slowly learn more about who they were before this catastrophe, and it leads to a very emotional experience. You can't help but feel sorry for these psychos that are literally trying to kill you the whole time. And not only are the bakers trying to kill you, you suddenly run into a new threat that literally comes out of the walls from nowhere. This new threat are called the molded. These molded creatures were fueled by all the missing people throughout the years. They're not physically underneath the mold, but let's just say their nutrients help the mold form an ectoplasmic humanoid monstrosity to attack you at all cost. They're simplistic at first glance, but they are the things of nightmares. I know a lot of people think that they're just kind of like blah, but to me, I loved them. Without spoiling any more, I'll start by saying this is exactly the way survival horror should be. It wasn't the classic survival horror we knew back in the day, its survival horror evolved. It was impactful and the suspense didn't stop. The story feels fresh the whole way through up until the end. That's when it turns into the Resident Evil we're familiar with. It's not word for word Resident Evil, but a new spin that complements how the story was told in the earlier games. Now let's talk about the gameplay. The point of view especially is where this game changes everything. Going from third person to first was a little jarring and I know it angered a lot of fans, but from the moment I grabbed the controller, it felt right. This was a different Resident Evil and I loved it. The intensity of it all kept me at the edge of my seat the entire time. It was all up in your face, and that's not even mentioning the VR capability, which made it even more terrifying. And I didn't even mention this in the story section of this video, but you're just a normal dude. You're not the heroes you've played in the other games. You're not even a rookie cop on his first day of the job. You're just a man looking for his wife. You're slow, you're weak, you've never shot a gun before. Hell, you're getting the shit beat out of you, I'd say 75% of the time. Ethan Winters is nothing special, and they made it very clear. Going up against the bakers and the molded had a difficulty curve to it. Your shooting wasn't accurate, and it was done on purpose. Ethan had no control of recoil, no precise aiming, and no weapon training whatsoever. It was even slow just to reload ammo. How did you make it out alive? That would just spoil the fun of the game, wouldn't it? But all I can say is, he's one lucky son of a bitch. Another great return was the puzzles, which was lacking in some recent games. They weren't all that challenging, but having them in the game is an important element in Resident Evil, and I appreciated seeing them. Overall, the gameplay worked, and it intrigued not just Resident Evil fans, but all different types of people, whether that be general gamers or horror fanatics. It hyped up enough interest to make the game the highest sold Resident Evil title to date. I'm sure that pisses off some fans, but the numbers don't lie. Resident Evil 7 may not be the perfect Resident Evil for some, but it was the perfect one for me. I'm a horror movie fan, and the love and respect they put into the Easter eggs of this game was chef's kiss. It's mean and relentless to you, and it will not hold your hand at all. The team over at Capcom took chances with a sequel to a popular franchise, and I think it hit the mark. I don't even think they were aware of the impact this game would make on the world. Granted, it's a little hated on in the Resident Evil community, but all I can do is wonder why. It does exactly what the first Resident Evil did. It put you in a cramped space. It gave you the mystery and eeriness the OG did, to the point where people nearly pooped all over themselves with each passing minute of playing. Resident Evil 7 has more heart and care put into it than I'd say some of the sequels overall. It achieves what Resident Evil is in its core. It might not reveal its identity to the world in the beginning, but with enough digging, just like in the original games, you find the same Resident Evil we know and love so much. What do you guys think of this? Do you all agree, disagree? I'd love to know in the comments down below. This is my first little retrospective type video, and I hope I made it clear how much love I have for this game. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you do, consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. It does help out a lot. If there are any other games you'd like to hear retrospectives on, let me know as well, and I'd be happy to dive into them. And until next time, take it easy, bubs.